सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गो गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mother, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, good morning.
You're welcome. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So I'm going to put the rest on the screen and then we may start.
Where is this grand temple that you're in?
It's just a visual deception.
It's gorgeous.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mother. Okay. So, all right. Okay, Hare Krishna.
I have to organize an event next week.
Krishna. There's some kind of weird things covering up. Okay, there we go. So should I begin?
Yes, Mother.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 11th chapter, 16, 17. So this is a, actually it's a beautiful chapter. So I should just read the, I'll just read the Sanskrit and then somebody can read the translation and purport.
Okay.
Do we need translation?
Okay, I can do that.
But we need translation, yes, no?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'll just read the Sanskrit because you'll do the other part. Nishamyastamanyantam Vasudeva Mahamana Akuras Chagrashana Charamas Chadbhuta Vikrama Prajumanas Charudesna Cha Sambodham Bhavati Sutta Praharasya Vijo Chastita Shayana Sana Bhojana.
So translation. On hearing that the most dear Krishna was approaching.
Hold on. Are you going to just do it? If you're going to do it in English, then I can do it. But I thought you were going to have to translate into another language.
Oh, no, we don't need to. No, it's just
okay.
English.
Then I can go ahead. Then I can go ahead.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Most of the calls I've been on recently, I've had to do that dynamic. So,
okay, no.
Nishyama, just hearing, Pristam, the dearmost, Ayantam, coming home, Vasudeva, the father of Krishna Mahamana, the magnanimous, Akrura, Cha and Ugrasena, Cha and Rama, Balaram, the elder brother of Krishna, Cha and Advuta, superhuman Vikrama, prowess, Prajumna, Charodeshna, Cha and Samba, Jambavati Sutta, the son of Jambavati, Praharsha, extreme happiness. That's a good word, Praharsha. Veda, force, Uchastita, being influenced by Shayan, lying down, Asana, sitting on, Bhojana, dining. So translation. Can you raise it up a little bit more? Yeah. So on hearing that the dear most Krishna was approaching Dwarkadam, magnanimous Vasudev, Akrura, Ugrasena, Balaram, the superhumanly powerful, Prajumna, Charudeshna, and the son of Jambavati, all extremely happy, abandoned resting, sitting, and dining. Purport. Vasudev, son of King Surasena, husband of Devaki, and father of Lord Sri Krishna. He is so this purport, we're going to be going through some of the leading characters, not characters like a joke, but personalities, put it that way, leading personalities of that era. Vasudev, son of King Surasena, the husband of Devaki, and father of Lord Sri Krishna. He is the brother of Kunti, the father of Subhadra. Subhadra was married with her cousin Arjuna, and this system is still prevalent in some parts of India. Vasudeva was appointed minister of Ugrasena, and later on he married 8 daughters of Ugrasena's brother Devaka. Devaki is one of them. Kamsa was his brother-in-law, and Vasudeva accepted voluntary imprisonment by Kamsa, a mutual agreement to deliver the 8th child of Devaki. This was foiled by the will of Krishna. As maternal uncle of the Pandavas, he took active parts in the purificatory process of the Pandavas. He sent for the priest Kashyapa at Satrashringa Parvata, and he executed the functions. When Krishna appeared within the bars of Kamsa's prison house, he was transferred by Vasudeva to the house of Nanda Maharaj, the foster father of Krishna at Gokula. Krishna disappeared along with Baladev prior to the disappearance of Vasudeva, and Arjuna, Vasudev's nephew, undertook the charge of the funeral ceremony after Vasudev's disappearance. Next personality is Akrura, the commander-in-chief of the Vrishni dynasty and a great devotee of Lord Krishna. Akrura attained success in devotional service to the Lord by one single process of offering prayers. He was a husband of Sutani, daughter of Akrura. He supported Arjuna when Arjuna took Subhadra forcibly away by the will of Krishna. Both Krishna and Akrura went to see Arjuna after his successful kidnapping of Subhadra. Both of them presented dowries to Arjuna after this incident. Akrura was present also when Abhimanyu, son of Subhadra, was married with Uttara, mother of Maharaj Parikshit. Ahuka, the father-in-law of Akrura, was not on good terms with Akrura, but both of them were devotees of the Lord. Ugrasena, one of the most powerful kings of the Vrishni dynasty and cousin of Maharaj Kunti Bhoja. His other name is Ahuka. His minister was Vasudeva, and his son was the powerful Krishna. This Kamsa imprisoned his father and became the king of Mathura. By the grace of Lord Krishna and his brother Lord Baladev, Kamsa was killed, and Ugrasena was installed on the throne. When Sava attacked the city of Dwarka, Ugrasena fought very valiantly and repulsed the enemy. Ugrasena inquired from Naradaji about the divinity of Lord Krishna. When the Yadu dynasty was to be vanquished, Ugrasena was entrusted with a lump of iron produced from the womb of Samba. He cut the iron lump into pieces and then pasted it and mixed it up with the seawater on the coast of Dwarka. After this, he ordered complete prohibition within the city of Dwarka and the kingdom. He got salvation after his death. Baladev. He is a divine son of Vasudeva by his wife Rohini. He is known as Rohini Nandana, the beloved son of Rohini. He was also entrusted to Nanda Maharaj along with his mother Rohini when Vasudeva embraced imprisonment by mutual agreement with Kamsa. So Nanda Maharaj is also the foster father of Baladev along with Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna and Lord Baladev were constant companions from their very childhood, although they were stepbrothers. He is the plenary manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he is as good and powerful as Lord Krishna. He belongs to the Vishnu Tattva, the principle of Godhead. He attended the Swayamvara ceremony of Draupadi along with Sri Krishna. When Subhadra was kidnapped by Krishna by the organized plan of Sri Krishna, Baladev was very angry with Arjuna and wanted to kill him at once. Sri Krishna, for the sake of his dear friend, fell at the feet of Baladev and implored him not to be angry. Sri Baladev was as satisfied. Similarly, he was once very angry with the Kauravas, and he wanted to throw their entire city into the depths of the Jamuna. But the Kauravas satisfied him by surrendering to his divine lotus feet. He was actually the seventh son of Devaki prior to the birth of Lord Krishna, but by the will of the Lord, he was transferred to the womb of Rohini to escape the wrath of Hamsa. His other name is therefore Shankarshan, who is also the plenary portion of Sri Baladev. Because he is as powerful as Lord Krishna and can bestow spiritual power to the devotees, he is therefore known as Baladeva. In the Vedas also it is enjoined that no one can know the Supreme Lord without being favored by Baladev. Bala means spiritual strength, not physical. Some less intelligent persons interpret Bala as the strength of the body, but no one can have spiritual realization by physical strength. Physical strength ends with the end of the physical body, but spiritual strength follows the spirit soul to the next destination, next transmigration. And therefore, the strength obtained by Baladev is never wasted. The strength is eternal, and thus Baladev is the original spiritual master of all the devotees. Sri Baladev is also a class friend of Lord Sri Krishna as a student of Sandipani Muni. In his childhood, he killed many asuras along with Sri Krishna. Specifically, he killed the Dinakasura at Talavan. During the Kurukshetra battle, he remained neutral and he tried his best not to bring about the fight. He was in favor of Duryodhana, but still he remained neutral. When there was a club fight between Duryodhana and Bhimashena, he was present on the spot. He was angry at Bhimashena when the latter struck Duryodhana on the thigh or below the belt. And he wanted to retaliate the unfair action. Lord Sri Krishna saved Bhima from his wrath, but he left the place at once, being disgusted at Bhimashena, and after his departure, Duryodhana fell to the ground to meet his death. The funeral ceremony of Abhimanyu, the son of Arjuna, was performed by him, as he was a maternal uncle. It was impossible to be performed by any one of the Pandavas, who were all overwhelmed with grief. At the last stage, he departed from this world by producing a great white snake from his mouth. and thus he was carried by Seshanag in the shape of a serpent. Move it. Can you move the Prajumna, incarnation of Kamadev, or according to others, incarnation of Sanat Kumar, born as the son of the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna and Lakshmi Devi, Srimati Rukmini, the principal queen at Dwarka. He was one of those who went to congratulate Arjuna upon his marrying Subhadra. He was one of the great generals who fought with Salva, and while fighting with him, he became unconscious on the battlefield. His charioteer brought him back to the camp from the battlefield, and for this action, he was very sorry and rebuked his charioteer. However, he fought again with Salva and was victorious. He heard all about the different demigods from Naradaji. He is one of the 4 plenary expansions of Lord Sri Krishna. He's the 3rd one. He inquired from his father, Sri Krishna, about the glories of the Brahmanas. Upon the fratricidal war among the descendants of Yadu, he died at the hand of Bhoja, another king of the Vrishnis. After his death, he was installed in his original position. Charudeshna, another son of Lord Sri Krishna and Rukmini Devi. He was also present during the Swayambhava ceremony of Draupadi. He was a great warrior like his brother and father. He fought with Vivinidaka and killed him in the fight. Samba, one of the great heroes of the Yadu dynasty and the son of Lord Krishna by his wife Jambavati. He learned the military art of throwing arrows from Arjuna, and he became a member of parliament during the time of Maharaj Yudhisthira. He was present during the Rajashunya Yagya of Maharaj Yudhisthira. When all the Vrishnis were assembled during the time of Pravasha Yagya, his glorious activities were narrated by Satyaki before Lord Baladev. He was also present along with his father, Lord Sri Krishna, during the Ashwamedha Yagya performed by Sri Yudhisthira. He was presented before some rishis falsely dressed as a pregnant woman by his brothers, and in fun he asked the rishis what he was going to deliver. The rishi replied he would deliver a lump of iron, which would be the cause of fratricidal war in the family of Yadu. The next day in the morning, Samba delivered a large lump of iron, which was entrusted to Ugrasena for necessary action. Later on, there was the foretold fratricidal war, and Samba died in that war. So all these sons of Lord Krishna left their respective palaces, leaving aside all engagements, including lying down, dining, sitting, hastening toward their exalted father. I'll just read translation again. On hearing that the dearmost Krishna was approaching Dwarakadam, magnanimous Vasudeva, Akrura, Ugrasena, Balaram, the superhumanly powerful, Prajumna, Chaudeshna, Samba, the son of Jambavati, all extremely happy, that Praharsha, extremely happy, abandoned resting, sitting, and dining. Somagyantimarandasya jananasa kalaya Chakshum militam yena tasme Sri Gurave namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavari Praskatya Jasatarane Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasindu Vayevyacha Patitanam Pavanevim Bhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Hare Krishna, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're situated. Thank you for this opportunity to say a few words. Now, we have just heard about very outstanding personalities, many of them the sons of Lord Krishna. And in this regards, in this respect, I would like to speak about another great personality who we just celebrated his departure, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Because by the mercy and grace of Srila Prabhupada, we have even come to know about these amazing souls. Now, yesterday on the Western calendar was November 14th. And it was on November 14th in 1977 that His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, departed from our vision. I would like to speak a few words about this. I am recently, actually wasn't that recent, it was about a year or two ago, but recently, I was listening to a lecture delivered by His Holiness Giriraj Swami. And in that narration, he was sharing and revealing a very deep aspect of Prabhupada's departure pastime. And it is this I want to share with you, because I think it's important that we have these deep insights, and our seniors, our elders, our advanced devotees are able to help us in that way. We may know the chapter and verse, but they understand the purports, and they can even elaborate on the purports to a much greater degree than we can. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to speak on this topic.
Yes, please.
So once on his Guru Maharaj's disappearance day, Srila Prabhupada said, and here is a very nice lesson, something to remember, on the absolute platform, there's no difference between appearance and disappearance of the spiritual master, or we can say any other great personality. We've heard this, there is no difference between appearance and disappearance. Srila Prabhupada put it into context. He said, both are beautiful, just like the sunrise and the sunset. So although we feel separation, within that separation, our remembrance of Srila Prabhupada is heightened. And thus we experience the beauty of his presence in separation. Now, I'm sure almost everybody has heard about this incredible pastime where a few days before his departure, Srila Prabhupada expressed the desire to travel by bullock cart to the different holy places in Vrindavan and Braj. Lokanath Swami had been traveling by bullock cart to different places of pilgrimage, and he would report back on occasion to Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan. And Srila Prabhupada was always very enlivened by these reports. So on this particular occasion, Srila Prabhupada said he too would like to go on pilgrimage on a bullock cart. And he asked Lokanath Swami to arrange it. And immediately Maharaj began to make arrangements. Govardhan Puja was to take place in a couple of days, and Prabhupada expressed he would begin his pilgrimage by traveling on a bullock cart to Govardhan to celebrate Govardhan Puja with the Brajabasis. Now, at this time, Srila Prabhupada was fully bedridden. If any of you have seen that film by Yadu Bar of the final day of Srila Prabhupada, the final days, it's so difficult to look at least for myself, and I know many others. He was bedridden. He wasn't able to eat. He could only sip a little liquid, very gaunt, very weak, practically no energy. He would lie on his bed and sometimes with great difficulty speak softly, often so faintly only those that were very close to him could hear. There were many devotees in the room when Srila Prabhupada had this exchange with Lokanath Swami. And immediately after the discussion, the devotees went outside to express two strong, heartfelt opinions about what Srila Prabhupada should do. And more than that, how we as his disciples should relate to Srila Prabhupada and serve him under the circumstance. One group, which was everybody at that time, senior disciples of Prabhupada. So these senior disciples, they felt they should just do what the spiritual master ordered. We shouldn't question his order. We should just execute it. On the other hand, some other disciples, senior also, many of whom had been personally attending to Srila Prabhupada's needs during this difficult time with his health, they felt Srila Prabhupada's health would not sustain his travels on a bullock cart because he was so emaciated. He had practically no flesh on his bones. It would be so very painful for him to go. Even if they tried to pad the cart with mattresses, it would still just be a bullock cart. And the roads in Braj were just so rough. They weren't paved. There was more potholes than roads. And at every moment the cart would jostle. There was no suspension, big, huge wooden wheels. I don't know how many of you have ridden on something with wooden wheels. It looks really cool, but I'm telling you, it's really uncomfortable. So they were feeling the movement of the cart would jostle Prabhupada. He would feel pain. Some devotees feared the worst. He might even give up his body on the way. They didn't want him to be subjective to what they saw as certain pain and perhaps the dire consequence of his death. But this opinion was very difficult to maintain under the circumstance because Srila Prabhupada was so emphatic. Let me travel to all the tirthasthans, he said, to all the holy places. And whatever objections devotees raised against the proposal, he countered. One day experiment. Rest assured, I will not die in one day. Prabhupada's Kaviraj, the doctor, predicted that with all the jostling on the cart, Prabhupada would not survive more than 2 hours. And Prabhupada replied, but I think I shall be cured. The controversy continued. When Prabhupada said, I think I shall be cured, some took it that he was supporting their position, and others took it differently. What does it mean he's going to be cured? It means he's going to travel and leave his body and get a spiritual body. That's how he's going to get cured. Others, others were just feeling that this one-day experiment would have dire consequences. But how to convince Prabhupada? Every party was seeing things in a particular way that supported their particular point of view. And things came to the point, to the stage, where the bullock cart was waiting right outside the gates of Krishna Balaram Mandir. So for those who have been there, you know where Srila Prabhupada's rooms are. And you know that bed in the ground room. Formerly it had been upstairs, but when he became so overcome with loss of strength, they moved it down because he could not navigate the stairs. And it was very uncomfortable for him when the devotees would try to take him up and down. So he's lying on this bed. Bhakti True Swami was in the room, and Srila Prabhupada's dear godbrother, Chinchana Krishnadas Babaji, had come to visit. Babaji Maharaj was a very advanced devotee, and Srila Prabhupada had told us he was a Paramahansam. He was always engaged in Harinam, absorbed in Harinam, and he was always blissful. He and Srila Prabhupada had an extraordinarily affectionate relationship. So Bhakti True Maharaj was thinking, let me appeal to Babaji Maharaj. If he asks Srila Prabhupada not to go, maybe Prabhupada will listen to him. So he began speaking to Babaji Maharaj, and meanwhile, upstairs, Tamal Krishna Goswami, Bhavananda Maharaj, and others were present. And they had become in a very emotional state. And Srila Prabhupada was aware of this. And when they came downstairs, as Babaji Maharaj was sitting and Bhakti True Maharaj was there speaking to him, so they came downstairs in a very emotional state. And Prabhupada, he could understand what they were thinking. And so he asked, so you request me not to go? And Tamal Krishna responded, Srila Prabhupada, we were getting so upset. 2 devotees told me this road is so bad. If you go on this road, you're going to be jolted back and forth. The road is terrible. I can't understand it, Srila Prabhupada, why it has to be tomorrow that you go. Why do you have to go when you're in this condition? I can't understand it. If you get well, and when you get well, and not if, when you get well and get stronger, then we can happily take you. So he put this out, and suddenly Prabhupada said, all right, I shall not go. And Bhavananda said, thank you, Srila Prabhupada. We were in too much anxiety. And Srila Prabhupada lovingly replied, no, I cannot put you into anxiety. I shall do what you like. My left hand, my right hand, because he had so much trust and faith in these two. They had done so much. My left hand, my right hand, I cannot refuse. And then Tamal Krishna said, actually, Srila Prabhupada, we're so attached to you that you practically drive us to madness. Tonight we were becoming mad. Prabhupada said, no, I shall not do that. And he turned to Babaji Maharaj and he said, just see how much they love me. Then Tamal Krishna said, Srila Prabhupada, when you deal with us like this, it simply deepens our attachment at every moment. Srila Prabhupada replied, it is my duty. For the devotees in the room, it was a jubilant occasion. Srila Prabhupada had agreed to wait. As Tamal Krishna said, we will take you on Tirtha Yatra, just get a little stronger. But when the news reached the other group, they were upset. This is not our duty as disciples to try and prevail upon our spiritual master. Our duty is to execute his will. He said he wants to go by bullock cart to Govardhan, and our duty is to arrange what he wants. Our duty is not to advise him or prevail upon him according to our perception. And so the controversy continued until the end. Srila Prabhupada left his last 3 days spent his last 3 days with his disciples at the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And the last day, he didn't speak. His only words were in the morning when the Kaviraj asked him to drink some juice, and he replied, Meri kuch ichha nahin. I have no desire. After that, he didn't speak. He was in a completely internal state of consciousness, and the devotees surrounded him with soft, loving kirtan. For the last few hours in the afternoon, the doors were opened up to everyone. Previously, only a few select persons, his caretakers and his chosen kirtanir, were allowed in the room. There was 24-hour kirtan by his request. So the doors were open, and young, old, children, men, women, all were allowed to be in the room with Srila Prabhupada, to reciprocate and love him, to touch him, to massage him, to softly chant with him. And then at 7:26 p.m., his tongue and mouth moved. Hare Krishna. And he departed. Even after all the rituals, the formalities had occurred, his body had been prepared. He was taken on the pilgrimage to all the temples of Vrindavan. He was put into samadhi. Even after all that, strong feelings, controversy continued, strong feelings on both sides. So Giriraj Swami was sitting in the room by his bed in a little corner, and he noticed this new volume of the Bhagavatam that had just arrived earlier, 10th Canto, Volume 2. It had actually been delivered into Prabhupada's hands in his last days when the devotees presented it. It was a special edition made for Prabhupada with gold embossing. He opened it up, just opened it, and it came to chapter 9, Mother Yasoda binds Krishna. So of course, we know that beautiful story. We are celebrating this story daily during Kartik. But there is a verse that Giriraj Swami felt gives insightful answers to the controversy. So the translation 10:9-19, there's two verses, 19 and 18. So, O Maharaj Prikat, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Drindra is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet the Supreme Lord has one transcendental attribute. He comes under the control of his devotees. This is now exhibited by Krishna in his pastime. And the pastime is encapsulated in the previous verse, text 18. Because of Mother Yasoda's hard labor, her entire body became covered with perspiration, and the flowers and comb were falling from her hair. And here's the lesson. When child Krishna saw his mother thus fatigued, he became merciful to her and agreed to be bound. In the commentary, it is said the spiritual master is the transparent medium through which Krishna manifests himself. Of course, in Braj Bhakti, the relationship with Krishna is different. In Braj, Krishna exhibits Nara Leela, human-like pastimes, in which there is complete intimacy and freedom between the devotees and the Lord. In the relationship between the disciples and the spiritual master, there's always an element of awe and reverence and duty. But this duty is meant to lead one to love. After all, Srila Prabhupada had said to Babaji Maharaj, just see how much they love me. 1 month earlier, there had been another incident. Srila Prabhupada had stopped drinking water. Previously, he had said that when his father wanted to leave his body, he had stopped drinking, and that this was a bona fide way to give up one's body when the time came. Srila Prabhupada didn't make any announcement or anything. He just stopped drinking. So he had a servant, Upendra, a very sweet devotee. And in his innocent way, Upendra said to Prabhupada, actually Upendra was one of our original early San Francisco devotees from 67. So he said to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you have to drink. If you don't drink, you'll become dehydrated. And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, you want me to drink? Call the GBC. This wasn't a joke. That decision, whether Prabhupada should drink or not, was no small matter. So whatever GBC and senior devotees were there, they came into the room and Prabhupada said, if I want to survive, of course, I'll have to take something. But my survival means so many inconveniences. Therefore, I've decided to die peacefully. Everything is in the hands of Krishna, said Tamal Krishna. And that had always been the mood coming from Srila Prabhupada. Everything depends on Krishna. Many times Srila Prabhupada had said he would accept whatever Krishna desired. If Krishna allowed him to stay, he would stay. And if Krishna wanted him to go, he would go. Previously, another disciple had asked Srila Prabhupada, you said that your Guru Maharaj had left early because Bhaktisiddhanta was only 62 when he departed. So your Guru Maharaj left early because he was disgusted. Is this the case with you? And Srila Prabhupada replied, no. If Krishna allows me to stay in your association, I will be most happy to stay in your association. Now, however, Srila Prabhupada opened his eyes and he said, Krishna wants me to do as I like. The choice is mine. He has given me full freedom. So this was a different mood, a completely different answer, giving us a glimpse into the intimate reciprocation between Lord Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. So again, the devotees went out and they began to discuss. And Kirtanananda Swami's point was the most clear, lucid, and intelligent. He said, if Krishna has given Prabhupada the choice, and if Prabhupada is giving us the choice, then we should ask Srila Prabhupada to stay. And everyone agreed, yes, we should ask him to stay. And then one devotee said, but all the GBC men aren't here. And Brahmananda retorted, come on, what GBC is going to say that they don't want Prabhupada to stay? So it was decided unanimously, they would go back into Prabhupada's room and they would tell him, we want you to stay. And Kirtanananda Swami was appointed to be the spokesperson. When they went back to the room, Prabhupada was lying quietly on his bed. As soon as they finished offering obeisances, Kirtanananda broke down and he started sobbing. He couldn't speak. Sitting behind him, Brahmananda began to rub his back to soothe him. And then Kirtanananda managed, Prabhupada, if Krishna has given you the choice, then don't go. We need you. Prabhupada asked, is this your joint opinion? Have you discussed? Yes, we all meant together. We want you to remain and lead the movement and finish the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada was silent for what seemed like an eternity. And then he yawned and said, all right. And just like that, all right. He agreed to stay in such a nonchalant way. All of the devotees were jubilant. Within themselves, they were rejoicing. Prabhupada is going to stay. Prabhupada is going to stay. He's not going to leave us. He's going to finish Srimad Bhagavatam. He's going to lead the movement. And Prabhupada said, this is real affection. In this verse from the 10th canto, these two incidents seem to come together. In both cases, when the disciples express themselves, we want you to stay, we want you to get healthy, Prabhupada had said, this is real love. Just see how much they loved me. So the disciples in this controversy were acting on the basis of their realization and devotion for Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada was drawing out loving sentiments of his devoted disciples beyond merely following an order. Following the order is given. There's no question. We must follow the order of the spiritual master. It's an offense to disobey the order of the spiritual master. It's an offense against the holy name. It's a basic principle of spiritual life. So this was not about disobeying the order of the spiritual master. It was about developing and deepening loving feelings for the spiritual master and expressing them to him. When Srila Prabhupada brought the devotees to that stage in these two incidences, he commented, this is real love. Just see how much they love me. So relating the verse from the 10th canto to what Srila Prabhupada did with them, there's also a parallel between the Damodar Leela and that principle of spontaneous love. Every night during the month of Damodar, we're reciting Damodar Astakam, including verse 3, beginning with Itidrik Swalilabir Ananda Kunde. By such pastimes, he is drowning the inhabitants of Gokul in pools of ecstasy and revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of his supreme majesty and opulence that he's only conquered by devotees whose pure love is imbued with intimacy and is freed from all conceptions of awe and reverence. To that Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, whose belly is bound, not with ropes, but with his devotees' pure love, I offer my humble obeisances. The Damodar Leela shows pure spontaneous love's special power to conquer the Lord. The Lord comes under the control of such pure love. And in the same way, Srila Prabhupada brought out love from deep within the recesses of our hearts. And then he reciprocated by agreeing to our requests, coming, as it were, under our control. This is a very deep pastime of Srila Prabhupada. Among the disciples who were around him at the end, it was understood he was a perfect acharya. He had taught us by his own example how to live in Krishna consciousness. And now he was teaching us how to die in Krishna consciousness. That was the general idea in those months and weeks, that he was showing us how to retire to a holy place, how to be absorbed in hearing the holy names of the Lord, how up until the end, even in his incredibly delicate condition, he was trying to push forward the mission, translating and dictating purports to the Bhagavatam. He couldn't even hold the microphone. They would hold it right by his mouth, up until the very end, translating and dictating Srimad Bhagavatam. And in that way, he was showing us how to die, fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, always pushing on this movement. But within that final lesson, he also brought about this more intimate level of exchange where he deliberately put up barriers, that the barrier being going on a bullock cart. But then he inspired us to break through the barrier, to reach out to him and express our love for him by asking him to stay with us. Even though Srila Prabhupada has now left that body, we will always have the choice. Do we want him to stay with us or not? Although we have been going along in that mood, whatever Krishna wants was all right. When really what should have been in our hearts was that we wanted him to stay. Maybe we want to be the controllers, to be the enjoyers. There's always that question. Do we want the kingdom of God, without God's representative? Or do we want the kingdom of God with God and his representative as their humble servants? So we can always pray to Srila Prabhupada that we'll always remember this lesson and always pray and act in such a way that he will be pleased to stay with us individually and collectively, and that we all may be lovingly bound to his lotus feet eternally. His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, and His Holiness Giriraj Swami Ki Jai, for his wonderful understanding, deep understanding of this most incredible pastime, the Prabhupada's departure. So there's a few minutes left if anybody has any comments or questions. And I thank you for allowing me to speak this, because I find it a very meaningful way, a very deep insight that can help all of us come closer to Srila Prabhupada and understand the mysteries of his departure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Thank you so much for your wonderful class. My question has to do with the sages that caused Samba to give birth to an iron. It seems to me that they changed the course of nature by changing or putting a womb, an iron in his stomach when they know he was choking. Even in the Bible, Jesus said, "Let little children come unto me." So the sage did not show love to the children by giving a curse. How do we understand this?
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Because everything in the Bhagavatam is connected to Krishna, then we have no doubt. And the Bhagavatam is a blueprint. It is a pathway to Krishna, either directly or indirectly through narratives. So bewildering examples, this is definitely bewildering. Just like it was bewildering for Prabhupada under this circumstance to think about going on an ox cart. I mean, ox carts were like, they're not very comfortable under normal circumstance, big wooden wheels, and the roads at that time were just terrible. I mean, how could this be, And at the same time, by reading these narrations that Giriraj expressed and seeing how things come together. So in the same way, when we reach or read things in the Bhagavatam that are somewhat beyond our comprehension, we can only rely on the spiritual master, on Krishna, and the Bhagavatam itself. So immediately, it may not always be clear due to our level of comprehension, but by continuing reading and chanting and hearing from the right sources, there will become a moment of clarity. And in this situation, like you're rightly mentioning, like it seemed like it changed the course. There was a certain trajectory, and suddenly this interference happened, this thing happened. But not a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanction. We know that, we hear it. It's like a certain mantra. So we may not immediately understand how it is this could happen in such a way that suddenly everything is getting turned upside down, practically speaking. But what was clear is that Krishna would be departing and would be bringing his family members with him. And we might think because we're conditioned souls, we understand we're the body, or we think we understand we're the body, but it would actually comes to acting on that pure level of spirituality, we still have bodily connections in our mind. I'll tell you an example. One time there was a devotee, I won't go through the whole story, but it's quite interesting actually. But anyway, this devotee was hit on the head by Hanuman of all things, but a deity of Hanuman, a heavy marble deity, and split the skin. So she had to be taken to an emergency hospital. And we were not anywhere near a place. We were traveling at the time, bringing Hanuman and Krishna, Sitaram, Hanuman, and Lakshman from New Vrindavan to Tuaco, New Jersey. And this happened en route. So we find out where there's a hospital, we go there. And I was allowed to be in the room with her, and the doctor comes in, he has a big, huge needle. Now this devotee, Gokula Tarni, who was like bleeding all over the place at the time, she was just peacefully chanting. In fact, we didn't initially know what had happened. Suddenly we stopped at a hard stop, and then I heard this little voice, Hanuman's on top of me. Hanuman's on top of you? Like, because he'd been tied to a pole in the back of the van. And then I looked and oh my God, there he was. Blood was coming out. I always have paper towels and spray bottles in my vehicle. So I grabbed a spray bottle, the paper towel, and like, lift Hanuman up and start cleaning up. And then we, got some ice from a service station and we'd go to the hospital. So there we're there. Here comes the doctor with this great big needle. Up until that point, I'm just, observing and trying to assist, and she's chanting. But when I saw him come with that big needle to start to sew up the stitches, I suddenly was like, oh my God. And I then, instantaneously, I saw my foolish reaction. It wasn't even my head. It wasn't even my body. And still I was feeling the pain, the presumed pain, although there wasn't going to be any pain because, of course, they numbed her. But it just showed me the foolishness of connecting with the body, that even how we can look at somebody else's situation and have some uncomfortable reaction based on the body. So when we hear these type of pastimes that are outside our actual experience of full realization of I'm not this body, they're not the body also. It's not just I'm not the body. Hey, you're not the body. Nobody's their body. Even the trees aren't their body. The cats and dogs aren't their body. And yet we have these feelings when we see some discomfort of the body based on the connection with the body. So in the same way, here's a bewildering pastime. We're trying to understand it, but our understanding is clouded by our bodily connection, which is probably on a very subtle level at this point. After all, you're a very senior devotee who's been practicing seriously. But those subtle connections to the body are still powerful, and they can block our vision and block our understanding. Therefore, you have to rely on Guru, on Krishna, and the holy name, and there will be clarity. And in this instance, it's not really such an important point, why or how. It's just part of the picture.
Thank you so much. A question from Sahadev Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna, Mother, thank you so much for the class. What you just told us about Bhakti Charu Maharaj, what he wrote about Srila Prabhupada. I think as devotees and
it was coming from Giriraj Swami.
Oh, Giriraj, okay,
Yes.
Giriraj Maharaj.
Yes.
I think November 14th, 77 is the darkest day of every devotee's life. And it's hard for some of us to watch the video you were referencing to Yadruba Prabhu's video. It's too difficult.
I cannot. I watched it once.
Yeah.
That was more than enough.
Yes. And my question is, of course, Krishna is Krishna, but why would Krishna have to put his beloved devotee into such harsh condition? Like when I think of how Srila Prabhupada trying to establish Krishna consciousness, himself trying to distribute books, and then fainting on the streets of New York City under a scorching, heating hot sun, and then his final stage. Why would Krishna have to put his dear devotee into such difficulties? Is it just because we, the conditioned souls, will have to see his suffering and learn? Is there no way Krishna could also help us, the conditioned souls, to learn without necessarily putting his dear devotee into such hardship. It's difficult, and it's difficult to see pure devotees of the Lord go through such pain, and also it's difficult even just to hear about it. My second question to that is the controversy between the devotees, just to follow the orders of the spiritual master, and also seeing the pain and the agony the spiritual master will be going through by honoring his desire. And I'm really sorry for all these devotees. I mean, all of you, Prabhupada disciples, how you had to go through, because you hadn't lived it before. You had nothing to look up to make comparison. So what do we do? What do we do? Just to follow the spiritual master's orders, even though you know following his orders is going to put him into such painful situation. What do we do? Hare Krishna.
Well, that was the whole emphasis of those two verses. And that's the emphasis of our Kartik Yatra, that one Mother Yasoda was finally to the end of despair. Krishna, be out of love. Krishna said, all right, and allowed himself to be bound. In the same way, Prabhupada brought out the deep loving sentiments within the heart of the devotees and allowed himself to be controlled by the desire of the devotees, not control in some ordinary mundane way, but controlled through the love of the devotees. Yes, Srila Prabhupada, please stay. We could, it was equally valid, whatever Krishna wants. But then when Prabhupada said, Krishna leaves it up to me, Krishna said that it is up to me. And he left it up to the devotees. What are you going to say? No, just go, Prabhupada. No, Prabhupada, we want you to stay. That was out of love. And he brought that love out through this pastime. And it was an extraordinary moment. The departure was imminent. There's things I could say, just like that devotee asked him, were you disgusted? Are you disgusted with us? No, I would happily stay with you if that's what Krishna wants. But then Krishna gave Prabhupada the choice. And he agreed, okay, I'll stay. But even that stay, he didn't say how long he was going to stay, and it was a short stay, actually. Now, sometimes, looking back, how we were at that time, how a greater percentage of devotees was not very advanced at that time. Then there were some advanced souls, but we were mostly not too advanced. And there's the example when a child is given some currency, some money or something. He's foolish. He doesn't know how to take care. He'll throw it in the wind, tear it up, whatever. Here we were given 11 years association with a pure devotee. And there came a point when actually he had done what he could do and how he had to do it. It was up to us now. And his staying longer might have even been dead. I'm saying this, it's another whole thing, and I don't have so much time. But the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Not that contempt would be there, but we become casual. We become careless. He'd given us everything. He had put the mission, established the mission, and it was always there from day one that I am an old man. I may die at any time. I want you boys and girls to push on this mission. It wasn't anything new. He said the same in 66 and 67. now was the time. Yeah.
Thank you, Mother, for your answer. My second question is on the Prabhupada saying Krishna have given him a choice to decide. Then the disciples say if Krishna give him a choice, Prabhupada has also given them a choice.
Yeah.
So how does it mean every disciple also have a choice to decide? Like they have to decide for Prabhupada.
Prabhupada was asking for the collective, because he said, when they said, we want you to stay, he said, have you discussed? And it was unanimous. Of course, some people didn't, but it was, he asked, he asked, have you discussed, was it unanimous? Yes. So he gave that to them. And again, that was from the people who just said, okay, whatever happens is Krishna's choice, is Krishna's desire. But Krishna desired Prabhupada to decide, and Prabhupada decided, let my disciples decide. And that was part of an unfolding of revealing the love within the heart of the disciples. And a reciprocation between Srila Prabhupada's love towards us. That had always been there, but when you get into the battlefield, sometimes you forget about the loving exchanges, trying to be a temple manager, trying to do this and that, and and the loving exchanges sometimes get like, oh yeah, loving exchanges, we kind of, but this was a moment of loving exchange.
Thank you. We have a question from Oladimeji. Please unmute.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, my question is, when you mention about your emotional reaction when the devotee gets injured, and you actually remember that, oh, why am I so emotional about this? This is the body, and I should understand more about the soul, that we are all the soul. I want to know, at what point can we draw the line? Because at times as human beings, when things happen and we are not happy about it, especially when bad things happen to us or bad things happen to family, we always feel, compassionate about it, feel, remorse. And if with the self-realization principle, you have to understand that we are all souls, and the body is just like a cloth. So at one point, can we draw the line to actually know that, no, we are going out of extreme, or probably we are not compassionate enough? That's my question.
Hare Krishna. Well, in this particular case, there was nothing I could do that I wasn't already doing. I was there sitting with her, assuring her. But like I say, she was perfectly calm. She was, she was just chanting. And my reaction took me off guard, because it was almost as if I was feeling it. And actually she was feeling nothing, because they gave her, the pain, so you wouldn't feel anything. So for me, it was just like a lesson to how close, even though I'm not the body, I'm not the body, I'm not the body, bang, I'm like reacting as if I'm the body, so it's there, it's always there under the, and until we're fully purified, it will always be there and can distract us. Actually, I had a class earlier today from the Bhagavatam 294, and it was about this point of purifying ourselves, that we become purified, Atma Tattva, that we become purified. Why? So that we can see Krishna face to face. But because, until we're fully purified, we're going to see our thoughts, or whatever we see. When we look at the deities, we're going to be trying to adjust our mind. Here's God, or we might not even think here is God. So when that purity is there, we'll actually see Krishna, and we'll see all of Krishna's dear parts and parcels as spirit souls. We're not going to see, oh, here's this annoying devotee who bugs me all the time. Oh, here's this wonderful devotee. I like this devotee so much. They're always so nice to me. We'll see spirit soul. We're not going to be fearing pain because the pain is only related to the body and I'm not the body. I mean, I think you all know the story. Well, Prabhupada underwent this operation, a surgical operation, and it was a minor one, but it was an operation in UK, and he refused to take any anesthesia. And the doctor was shocked. How could he just sit there? And this would be happening. He didn't even flinch. Even when I get anesthesia and I know something's going on, I'm like, oh, I don't feel anything, but I'm still like flinching because I still have that subtle connection. That little veil of Maya is still there between me and pure vision. And once we have pure vision, that veil is gone and nothing is going to bewilder us because we'll be fully present with Krishna and Krishna's parts and parcels. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yes, Mother. Yes, perfectly.
We have to get that balm, like sometimes if you have an eye infection, you put some drops in the eye. So we have an eye infection. We need to put the real balm, this love of Godhead balm, into the eyes. That balm that allows us to actually see Lord Krishna face to face and see each and every one of us and
I have a
parcels
question.
of spirit soul.
Yes, Prabhu, go on, please.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Are you driving right now?
I just stopped. I pull over.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to see something weird happening. I'm sorry. I've gone through that already.
Yeah. Well, my question is, they're looking at what Srila Prabhupada told them when the disciples went back to Prabhupada and said, we want you to stay. And Srila Prabhupada said, is it a collective decision?
The what?
When Srila Prabhupada said, when Srila Prabhupada asked them that whether it was a collective decision.
Yeah.
Does that mean Srila Prabhupada he was using that opportunity to also teach us another lesson, that whatever decisions that we have to take when it comes to his body, like now that we know, like the body ISKCON is also Prabhupada. So his body, before we take any crucial decision, it must be a collective decision and not like one person's decision. Was it a way of him trying to teach us a lesson, like some sort of a lesson?
I mean, it could be naturally because he always was pushing for cooperation among ourselves, but so that could be part of it. But the deeper part was pulling out that love and then responding to the love as opposed to the duty. Just like Janaki Devi Dasi, first initiated lady disciple, her relationship with Prabhupada had no awe and reverence. She would chastise him, Swamiji. She would shake her head, Swamiji. I could, but it was purely loving. One time he was sitting at the airport holding his ticket, and she came up behind him, grabbed the ticket. She goes, now you can't go, Swamiji. I have your ticket. And she was so unpredictable. So he looks at Mukunda, like he didn't say it, but with his eyes, do something, And of course, so of course, in the end, the ticket was returned. And then there's this really sweet photograph where she has her hand on his shoulder and he's just looking up at her and she's looking at him with just so much affection. So when the awe and reverence, which we must have, that has to be there. And at the same time, there's a time when real spontaneity out of real love can be enacted, not before that. Just like we worship Radha Krishna in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan. This is the instruction of Srila Prabhupada. Now some devotees are like ignoring that instruction, dressing Radharani up like a cowherd boy, and so many things go on. They don't put a crown on her. These were instructions from Prabhupada to keep us clear, to keep us on the track. And when we develop that spontaneous love, we'll know how to act and when to act that way. And it won't be show bottle.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mata. Thank you very much.
So I have to take your leave. I was supposed to be on the road in the car going to, I'm taking a little preaching tour, but because of this class, I delayed.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So now I'm going to finish up my packing and get in the car and all of you.
So we request all devotees to kindly unmute yourselves.
Thank you so much,
for coming.
Haribol Srivas Prabhu, I just neared there. I didn't.
Hare Krishna. Happy to see you. Jai.
I hope you don't mind that I kind of took the class in a different way.
No, it's okay.
No, not at all. We love it.
Thank you, Mother. So devotees, kindly unmute yourselves. Let's chant Hare Krishna to Mother.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama.
Vibhyo Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki
Hare
Vibhyo.
Krishna.
Kusha Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Goswami.
Yeah, Shri Chakra, thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We had a long time no see.
Oh yeah, you know. You know,